Everybody, welcome to another Post Status live. And today is pretty special story for me, but one I wanted to share with our community because you all have been so supportive over the last 6+ months. And I know there's interest in this because burnout is a big thing. It's a big theme in our community. Those of us that work on the web, sit at desks and from our home or offices around the world. And I got enough interest in this that I wanted to just share it with you all today. Hopefully you're able to see my slides where it says my burnout and forced sabbatical. So as always, if you have a question or a comment, you can put that into the chat. You can either send it to me or everyone. We're such a great dynamic community that I hope you'll do that if you feel so led. In the interest of giving, growing together, that's the spirit that I'm sharing this today, but and I'll unpack a lot of that throughout this. But I just wanted to say this first and foremost. I'm not sharing from a therapeutic advice or guidance perspective. I'm merely sharing my experiences of burnout and recovery. And my intention in all of this is I love the experience share, what we call the experience share in one of my forum groups, which is not an online forum. It's a group of men and women I've had the distinct honor and privilege to walk with for the last 10+ years in my entrepreneurs organization forum group. They're such a key part to being an entrepreneur for me, have exponentially helped in my happiness and fulfillment in my highs and my lows, what we call our top 5% and our bottom 5%. But in that spirit of sharing my experience, that's where I'm coming from today. I'm not a therapist, I'm not trained, just one human sharing to other humans how my burnout and my story as open as I can so that it could inspire you in your own journey. And that if you need professional guidance, I have had professional guidance, that you go seek that out. So first and foremost, if you haven't heard what we call my iceberg talk, in 2015, I started sharing my mental health story publicly for the first time. And the key thing I'd want you to take away from today, I hope you take lots away that informs your own journey and you use what I say and apply it to your own truth and your own path. But you are not alone. Don't go it alone. When I started sharing about my previous 12 years, 13 years ago, divorce, and then experiences with depression, I got a really big resonance from people that it's part of my life's mission is to share as open as I can about my own story. And the message that I always like to share in these is I don't expect you to share your story publicly. I do this because it's part of my life calling now, but don't go it alone. You are not alone. Don't go it alone, and seek help and support from your trusted people as you experience life's highs and lows. And with that, I'd tell you that I give great credit to my forum group, but also this is Lindsay Miller. Many of you know her, is my life partner and my love in all the things. And I didn't go it alone. If there's one person I would thank a part of this whole journey, it's been her. We've been married for 11 years, this month actually. And she's been an incredible listener, hugger. She stepped in so many different ways in my life and in our work, and you've seen that. And I just wanted to say thanks, Lindsay. This picture was actually taken in March. It was one of my first work events. We went to Cloudfest in Germany, and we're in the town. I can't remember where that town was, but we flew into Frankfurt and we took this picture, and I thought it was relevant for today because in the midst of my journey, this is the person I had by my side. So again, if you have questions or things I didn't cover or talk about my experience, please share those and we'll get those. I'll be watching as we go, but I'll say this is one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life. And I'm still doing it. It's my work, my inner work, my life work that on myself and on the people I'm around and the people I impact in the world, the people I love most, the people I serve and support professionally. But it's the only place. That's what people would say, how are you doing? I said, it's tough. Some days I said, I just want to stay in bed. But all throughout it, I go, this is the work that whatever inside me, outside me, inspired to be at this place at this time and to do my work. And it was the only place I wanted to be, because it was a culmination of so many things in my life that I just needed some time and space to work on. And I say here, 10 years ago, I was thinking back about this, I probably would have just tried, not to say I would do it successfully, but just brute force it and get through it. And for a number of reasons I'll share, I just couldn't. That's why I call it my forced sabbatical. And along the way, I realized that the easiest way to share with people what was going on, because they say, what do you do? And I said, well, right now I'm taking my kids to baseball or sports camp. But through this process, it was even though it was some of the toughest times of my life, and I'm sure for Lindsay's and my family and people that love me and were around me, to see me going through that and also be impacted by it in big ways, but it was still the only place I wanted to be. And it was a long time coming. So I want to share some background, because it's important to share background in my experience. What led me up to the culmination that kind of in December, January of this year was total complete burnout for me, physical and emotional exhaustion. But in 2015, I started sharing the iceberg, and it was a great framework that Lindsay helped me with too, and lots of my team around me, to share as a framework to think about these times in my life. And they're not just one and done. It's an ongoing thing. But, we often think, and myself, I portray in public, whether it's just going to those baseball games or being at a word camp or whatever it is, that I'm really good at curating just the top part of the iceberg, the sunshine and success, that everything is awesome. The Lego movie theme song had to put Legos in here. But this is the way I really see all of life and all my fellow humans and myself, is there's often times underneath the surface that we don't have any clue about what's going on. And this, as you go deeper down the iceberg, is just kind of a framework to think about this for me, is often there's struggle and suffering down here. There's all of these things that I put in 2015 that still remain the same today for me and many others. And as you go deeper down into the iceberg, you see like Joshua Wald, a talented designer in WordPress, helped me illustrate this. He illustrated it, let me be clear. But we talked about like underneath you got like a kraken or something like that. These are the things when I talk to people, I never mess with. And I said, I'm not a trained professional. I'm here to listen and, try to direct you to the things that have helped me. But the deepest, darkest things, and that's part of the inner work I've done for the last 6+ months. And really it goes way before that. So here's part of the story. Before the culmination in January of this year, back in 2019, I left the company I had started and grown. But like I say here, more importantly, my team, some of the best friends I've made in my life, some of the most talented, incredible humans I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of their lives and share life together. That's where a lot of this story starts, because I was putting the final touches on a chapter of my professional work. And I don't do work typically like compartmentalized. It was these relationships. Matt Danner is still one of my best friends in my life and running iThemes now today. And it was really tough to leave that team. The money was awesome, don't get me wrong, but it was the people, they were the reward. And that was the start of this particular chapter I wanted to share, because leaving that team, every day since then, I've thought about them. And I'm proud of the work they're doing, but I miss them. And it was tough, because it felt like a breakup, that I was leaving this family, thought of them as part of my extended family. And no matter if I'm so happy about what they're doing, I still miss them every day and miss working with them. But I also didn't have a plan B or a next work thing. I thought, well, I would do coaching. I started a coaching program and all that. But I left this incredible experience I had that was also incredibly tough. And this extended family, and I didn't know what I would do next. And for most of my life, work has been a central key aspect, not just because it, earns me money, but because it's fulfilling to me. to be able to contribute and make a difference with things that I have or know or could be to other people and in a vision that's bigger than myself. I loved my work, and I've always loved my work. But I forgot how hard it would be to start a business and get a business off the ground. Those of you that are entrepreneurs know this. It is not just a clock in, clock out thing. And I know your works might not be that either, but it's for me, the way I approached it, it became borderline obsession. And I wouldn't even say borderline, it was obsession, because it had to do with preserving, protecting, making the life that we wanted to have for ourselves and our team and our customers too. But I forgot how hard it was in the early days. I had the rose-colored glasses on. And so over the next couple of years, I started several businesses and then eventually became a partner at Post Status. But I talked to lots of people, my own forum group, several people in that group had acquisitions and left their businesses that they started and was really a key part of their identity, and talked to other people that had sold companies and left their work. And some of them they poured their blood, sweat, and tears into. And they said, Corey, take 3 months, 4 months, 6 months off. And I was like, I know in my head I should do that, but in my heart, well, maybe in my head, I was driven by fear, because we had set aside money to be the runway to start my next gig. And I just thought, oh, I've got the magic touch, right? In some ways. And this will be easier than it was the first, because I know so much more and I've got a platform and I know people and I have these relationships. And it was nothing. It was nothing like that. It was a slog. Up until Brian and I started talking about joining Post Status, I had no clue. I just thought I would want to end any of my relationships in WordPress, but I didn't see my future professionally in WordPress until we started talking. And it was, wow, I made it back in around, but this is what I want. So the other part, and this is one of the first times I've shared this publicly, and the reason why I'm doing it is because, first and foremost, so I want you to know if you're suffering from similar things, particularly addiction. Mine was alcohol. I used it as a really bad, good, whatever, temporary medication for a long time. In April of 2019, I hit pretty much rock bottom. I knew for years, I don't want this. I don't need this. This is wrecking my relationships, everything I was doing, my health, all of those things. But in April 2019 was what I kind of think is the start of my recovery. And specifically, recovery is used as a word in addiction. But that was the start of my recovery. Just the intersection of all those things finally being able to kind of start to be free of that addiction that I had really built over a number of years to kind of deal with life and work and all the things. And so then I'm juggling a bunch of businesses. I had started 3 or 4, I can't remember how many businesses I started with partners and different things, and just trying to figure something out that would hit and grow, and what was passionate and interested about, what expertise I thought I could use. Coaching was going, it was good, but it was draining and it didn't pay as well that I needed it to pay for my time. The cost benefit was tough. And I appreciate giving guidance and hearing stories and doing coaching, but it was going to be really hard to do that for a full-time professional vocation for me at the time. And so I had all these businesses going. And then last year, a year ago in May, I became full owner of Post Status. What that meant for me was, it was interesting. Brian left to start his own software company with another good friend of mine. And I was so happy for him to be able to do that. And, but what it did for me was go, I can do whatever I want. Now, realistically, I could do whatever I want with Brian. He was a great partner of mine. But now in that announcement, there was a flood of opportunity that came in, and I was excited about that. And I was also relieved about that. But this flood came in. And what happened over the next couple of months was kind of a haunting of all the things that frustrated me, that I didn't like doing in my previous business, that were hard for me. They came in, and I was trying to juggle all of this potential, all of this opportunity. And don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for it, but I let it overwhelm me too. And then it was really in October, I was racing my kids barefoot in the backyard because I have to do that. I have to see if I can outrun them. And I ended up breaking my foot, and it took me 4 days or so. Finally, Lindsay said, go to the urgent care now and get an x-ray. And sure enough, I had broke one of my sesamoids in my foot, and it was hurting. And the reality was I just had to kind of like get through it. I did not want to do surgery. That wasn't a good option, viable option. But the reason why I'm telling you about the foot, physically, I broke a bone. I've only broke one other bone, two other bones in my body in my life. This is my foot. You got to use your foot to walk around on the earth for most of us. And so there was this physical pain that I was having. I was in a post-op surgery boot because they said, we need to keep this. And every time I tried to think, oh, I'm doing better, it cycled through and start hurting again. I could not literally go fast. Physically, literally, I could not go fast. I had to go at this just pace with the boot. And that had physical repercussions in my body too. And then November, I had 4 business trips because I couldn't do anything just, medium speed. I had to do it full speed, 4 business trips in 3 weeks. And they were all good opportunities for a business and things I needed to do or felt like I needed to do. But I found myself in airports, and I hate business travel. I love seeing people, but I don't like traveling without my family. I'm kind of a homer. And so I was walking around the boot in all these airports, and that was a compounding physical issue. And in hotels, away from my own bed, my wife, my kids, my life here in Oklahoma. And those started to compound with all this. And when I came into December, it was really physical and emotional exhaustion. And I remember Googling burnout, and I found a Harvard Business Review article about burnout. And one of the 3 conditions, the other 2 didn't really hit for me, was physical and emotional exhaustion. And I said, I'm physically exhausted. I'm hurting. It took me 4 months where I was really probably able to walk normally. And I haven't even tried really running because that every time I would try something, it would set me back. And so I've treated that foot very tenderly, as well as my body too, since that time. But I rolled into December just exhausted. There was no gas in the tank. I was emotionally, there was some other things going on in my life that I won't really share today, but I had some extended family conflict going on at that time around Christmas, around the holiday of Christmas and the break. But Lindsay said, hey, I'm taking off 2 weeks around the holiday break. And I was like, good, because I can't do anything else. Started cleaning out of our garage real slowly, those messes that pile up. And I thought, I just want to be away from a keyboard and just kind of try to get my head straight and try to just recharge a little bit. But it really wasn't enough. And I came into January and completely it was twofold. I couldn't do it, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to get back to a keyboard. So I wasn't just empty, I was broken. I felt very broken. Limping, into December, into the break, dealing with all these other things. And then when I tried to get near this desk here, I started having what I think is just mild panic attacks. I don't want to the reason why I'm saying mild is I don't want to take away from anyone suffering with panic attacks, but it felt like everything in my body was saying no. It was like this gravitational push away. I couldn't get here. And when I started to think about work and try to get near work, I'd have this debilitating pain in my stomach and gut. And I would just have to lay down. And I knew there wasn't anything physically happening. It was an emotional thing for me that it just kept me from the work. And when January came around, I just said, I'm not going to do it. And I remember having this conversation with Lindsay, and I just said, I don't care if it all burns down to the ground. But in that moment, I don't know what to do. So I'm there laying in bed some days when I try to get near a keyboard. And then I just said, I'm out. And this is why I will have eternal gratitude toward her. not only being my wife and my love of my life, but she stepped in and okay, because she didn't want our businesses to falter because I was, I was laid up on my face, being dragged in the pavement is the way I felt. And so she stepped in, and it was this, when I saw her step in, I thought, this is, one, I'm incredibly thankful. Two, I'm really guilty about it. But three, going, wow, now everybody else gets to see what I've seen for 12 years of my life. And she stepped in and was so thankful to kind of keep things afloat, and not even afloat, get better. It's like, well, shoot, I should have done this a couple years ago because it would have been so much better. So after the crash, I've had a therapist for 11, 12 years now. I talk about this publicly, but I asked Trent, my therapist, I said, I need weekly meetings. And so I put here, because I want to say this because it's still Fridays at 10. Now he happens to be out on vacation this week, so I didn't get to meet with him, but I just said, can I reserve Fridays at 10 for whatever? And he goes, you're on there for whatever. And when that changes, we can change it. But I was like, I'm not even close to being wanting to change that, even today. And then we kind of joked, but it was in all seriousness. I slowly started taking over. I've always helped with the kids, and we're a partnership at home and in business. And but it kind of became the thing. I'm the house spouse. That was when I felt like all this work thing was being stripped away from me. The job I had was, the role I played for our family was full-time house spouse. I started taking the kids to all the things, trying to pay all the bills that and take care of our mail that was coming in, and different things. But anything kind of the work related, I had to stay away from. Even though Lindsay and I would talk, and she'd keep me kind of updated when we talked through things that were going on in the various businesses that we own and run. And I was tried to be there for her that too. I could feel in my stomach every time we kind of get into something, these hauntings of things that just frustrated me, that I struggled with. And but just being very frank and direct, that was a struggle. I had, not because I am necessarily above it, but because I had poured so much time and effort and pride into my work, into my career, into being this entrepreneur, into being this leader in a community. It was hard to say, what's my job today? What do I do in the job? Well, the dishes need to be done, and I need to do laundry, and I need to, book the kids for a camp, or, one of them got sick. I tried to take all of those things off of Lindsay, so that she could focus on just the work. And it was tough. It was a real struggle for me to really accept that, and that this is what I'm going to do, that I'm not going to do something that changes people's lives across, or write a blog post, or help with a product feature that helped tick the box and made my contribution. And it was a real struggle. And I finally found some acceptance with that and embraced it, where it was okay. And it was a freedom that came a part of that, but it was a freedom at a high emotional cost too. But the term acceptance is a big theme in all of this. And then around March, I tried to stay away from work, but I thought I had enough space I could maybe start to inch back in. And Lindsay and I booked Germany for CloudFest as part of Post Status. And I came away from that with just, it was so good. I met so many great people in our community over there, but it was just, it wasn't exciting to me. And I had this weird feeling of like playing a part, but not owning the part, not wanting the part, I just kind of going through some motions of that whole thing. And then eventually I did go in May, I went to WP Engine, asked me to be a part of their agency summit in New York City. And again, business travel, okay. But it was kind of sticking my toe back in. Can I try to come back to work? And amidst all of this, I'm having some real struggles and understand, what do I want to do? It's a question I hadn't asked in a very long time, really, and tried to explore that meaning behind it. Is like, what does it for me? Again, because I got into all these things that I didn't like to do, conflict being one of them, constant problem solving, constant fires being put out, managing people. I'll share that in a minute. People and team, and trying to build products and get get sponsorships and all this kind of stuff going. And I just didn't want to have anything to do about it. It's funny because I always joke I'm a really good typer. And I say that because look at my hands. Like I don't have calluses on my hands. I don't have a woodworking hobby. I don't like to get out and garden, or I didn't. And it was always kind of a joke. I would say to like, I like to do this kind of stuff. And but it was kind of all I could do was the stuff that I would use my hands to do the dishes, drive the kids to their activities. And it was tough because the identity and the meaning that I had found in it really changed. But these were tests for me. And could I show up? One part of my alcohol addiction and recovery was, frankly, I knew it would help the work we were doing in our team, but I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And so alcohol became a really good numbing mechanism for me to get through some of those things. Sitting in a cramped airplane seat. Then you had COVID protocols going on. So I'm wearing a mask the whole time and fogging up my glasses and trying to figure out where should I go next and what do I need to be doing and all these expectations. So those were two good tests and I did okay with them. Europe was actually a fun time because it was the first time in a long time I just said, when I'm out and when I'm done, I'm done. And so I ghosted everybody when I was done. I was like, said my goodbyes and had a 45-minute walk back to my hotel. And it was beyond the people and relationships I built, expanded there and grew. It was the best time. It's that walk back to my hotel in the beautiful Porto night air. And then last month I stepped back in to post status and we're still trying to figure out what my role is, but I'm helping our team that we have, Dan, Michelle, Lindsay's still the CEO and I want that to stay that way for as long as she's able to do it too. And I just wanted to kind of inch in back to work. So that's the background. Now I want to, and if you all have questions or anything, I want to make sure I answer those if I left gaps or things that don't make sense. I want to make sure I clearly share to the best of my knowledge and understanding today of what I went through in the background to all of this. So the lessons I'm still learning, these aren't, the things that, oh yeah, I got this forever. No, they're practices. But the biggest, and I'll say this over and over, is I did not make adequate time and space to recharge, to get away from work, to get away from the things that stressed me out and to work on myself and to truly recharge. A lot of the vacations we took were wrapped around business. And then I'd carry that worry, even when we had those vacations that were awesome and times away, with me on vacation. I'd have my email if I needed my email, and I was always thinking about business. Business was probably one of the best drugs I've found. It was, for me, it ticked all the boxes and also rewarded me financially, but fulfillment, identity, purpose, meaning, contribution, relationships, making a difference in people's lives, seeing some of my ideas, not all of my ideas, take off. Some of the ideas that our team had take off, being a part of that, being able to step in and do things and make some contribution that mattered. I had so and still have so much meaning, purpose, and identity wrapped up in those things. And it was taken away. But I know now that time and space I've had for 6 months or so it took me a while to finally get detached enough where I could then just sit. I went on a bunch of hikes. We've got a couple hiking trails around here and rediscovered my love of nature and beauty and being out there, that I felt like when I was amongst the trees by myself, that I felt my battery started to recharge, that kind of got into the yellow again. And then I go back and do other things and I go, okay, I need to go back and hike. I couldn't really run. Obviously, I didn't want to chance that, but that time and space was magical. I would not have taken it if it hadn't been, quote, forced. I wouldn't have done it 5 years ago and certainly not 10 years ago. I started, I think, in my early 30s and quickly realized whatever youth and energy that I had back then, I don't have the same. My body's gotten older. I haven't taken care of my body as much. I've had three meetings today. I can tell my legs hurt. When I was in my early 30s, I could power through midnight and do things. And this week I've been working on our index and realized like I'm getting back down into my rut again. And it's hard for me to walk away and just put things down. But this time and space just enabled me to go. I have a shaman, and one thing she said is, what do you want in its place? So I'm sitting here, I can tell my legs are going to be a little sore when I finally get up again. And what do I want in its place? Well, I want to go be with my kids. We're going to go swimming later. I want to go walk around the property. I'm looking out onto some of our land here, and I just love looking at the green. I'd like to be out there, even though it's Oklahoma hot. But and for me, it took being forced to take the time and space where everything I felt like was taken or stripped away from me, and I wasn't able to go do those things that I had derived such great fulfillment and meaning and purpose. But the three things that really stand out to me is myself first. It was no one else prohibited this. It was myself, but I didn't put myself first. And this time and space that Lindsay allowed me, provided for our family to do, and so many of my friends and family that just came around me, is to truly get back down to myself first. Okay, what do I need? I do need more water. I do need to start eating more healthy, because I would like to live a long, healthy life, to see my kids grow up, to do more things in the world, to travel with my beloved around the world, meet new people, make friends everywhere. But I can't do that if I don't take care of myself, and I don't think about taking care of myself and actually practicing taking care of myself first. And I've known this in my head for a long time. I said a long time that if I don't take care of myself first, everything and everybody in my world will suffer. But this was time and space to say, it's time to get serious about it. And then my people, I would always say my big three: Lindsay, Callaway, and Lillian. Myself first, then them, then I could get some time and space to think about my paid work. If Lindsay were here, she couldn't be here today, but if she heard me, she'd probably roll her eyes, because I've said calibration and recalibration so many times over this whole journey, that I've been recalibrating things. Work is a big one. Love, life, health, all those things, emotions, my approach to emotions, my approach to my thoughts. I needed some recalibration, and that's what Forced Sabbatical was able to do. But, part of this, and my dear friend Sherry Young, who I think was here going to register for this today, she was critical to my recovery path and didn't always probably really know it, because I hid it from her and others, but is that that the wiring that happens to us in childhood and the things that happen that we experience in childhood really help shape and mold who we are today. And through this process, the recalibration is understanding some of those wires. How they got wired was important to me. How did they get wired? But the most important thing is why. Why do I take the world on my shoulders, take all of the responsibility? Why do I have such a hard time asking for help, depending on other people, that I want to try to do it all in myself? The why was so big, and this time and space helped me to examine the hows, the whys, and then go, what do I want it to be differently? How do I want it to be differently? And I just think about like software. That was version 46.1. How do I want the big next update to be? 46.5, 46.6, 47 eventually next year. How do I want version 47 to be? And I'm learning and I'm growing, but I'm having that space to be able to kind of rewire my life, how I think, how I sit with emotions, to serve me in a more healthy, fulfilling way. That for sure, alcohol, drugs, and work were never able to get even close to it. So the recalibration is the season of this time. And Lindsay, sorry, yeah, I ran that word ragged with her. So here's some takeaways that from my experience about my paid work. And I'm gonna flip what I just said about my themes, and then I'll get to my inner work, but and share some of that, not all of it. But my paid work, my approach to work, um, I did wrap up so much of my identity, and it wasn't in a greedy way. It was because it was in a greedy, formal way potentially because I loved it so much. I got so much from it. I got to write a commercially published book with my dear friends, Michael Torbert and Lisa Seven Wilson. I got to do keynote speeches that help people. I got to do build relationships and hear stories all over the world. And this thing called WordPress and entrepreneurship were just, it lit me up. And I've always found work so fulfilling. And when it didn't, I changed it before I started iThemes. I had a new job on average every 2 years. I would go in, max out a job, squeeze out all the juice, realize the husk was dry, and then go, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? And it really paralleled some of the work I've done with my alcohol addiction. But it did become a really dangerous addiction, an obsession. And for the longest time, I thought I could justify it in my head. When I do this, I get an intrinsic reward from it, but I also get a financial reward. I'm doing things that I'm getting paid well. I'm helping other people get paid well. I'm doing good work in the world. And I justified it that way. I'm aligning how we want our life to be with this thing that I also find so much value in at work. And then when I got stripped away from me, I realized, like I told people, I said, if one of the themes I'd have over the last 6 months is going sober from work. That paid professional work where you exchange dollars for time or effort or projects or whatever. I had to really go sober from work. And again, it was a forced sobriety, but just being aware of how that did tick and not trying to always justify my work in that way is going, now I can actually see the cost it takes if I sit in this chair for the next 4 hours and don't get up and don't go get water or whatever else, or take walks to get fresh air or be with my kids or whatever. It became very detrimental to my health and my relationships. And when I say forced sabbatical, I couldn't do what I'd always done. I just couldn't go back to the way I had approached my work for the last 15 years, which was all in, brute force, whatever it takes at any cost for myself, go, 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 go. Because, well, if I don't, then it won't keep providing a steady income back to our family. Now I have the amazing opportunity and privilege that, and I have for a long time, that my wife is a thriving entrepreneur herself. And it was so nice. And I'm so honored and thankful for my privilege that she goes, I've got this. You go just do your work, the work you need to do. And to have some of the pressure that I put on myself for financially providing for our household, she kind of has had to gently remind me, it's not just you, it's me too. And I can take this now, you go do this. And that was incredible. But so many times during the sabbatical, it felt so much like being lost in a wilderness I didn't understand. And it wasn't a wilderness. It felt like a desert at times. It was bleak. It was hot. It was no map, or I felt like there was no map so many different times. But then it eventually slowly just kind of going, there's only one choice, that's to show up. That it transitioned slowly into one of openness and curiosity. And I became an explorer, and exploring this world that we've been born into, that there's opportunities, there's all this vastness out there that I can recalibrate, that I can start to find. And it, some of my friends in recovery say it's something to the effect of this, and more will be revealed. And I always hate that, because I'm like, no, tell me it all now. Like, I want to know the map now, today. But being forced to sit with this little nugget today is your nugget. It's your sustenance. It's the thing that you can think about and work on and see and feel and the essence of this phrase is becoming more apparent in our always on culture is stillness. There were so many times I was like, I'm sitting on my couch, I've dropped my kids off at school, and I come home to an empty house and go, it's just quiet, it's just still. I don't have some of those nagging pressures and worries I had with my businesses. Is I couldn't go there, and being forced to be still was an incredible lesson through all of this. But approaching it with non-judgment and openness and flexibility and curiosity. Had a therapist friend tell me that, is just stay curious. And I said, that's okay. What does that mean really? Because what is it? Stay open, see the world fresh again, was incredibly powerful for me. I realized a couple of things about my work, having some time and space. I don't find fulfillment personally in managing people. I like leading. Managing is tough. I don't like it. I also know, I've known this for a long time, but I avoid conflict at all costs. And what that does is it builds up these huge problems because I just keep avoiding or pushing off some key problems relationally, business-wise, everything in all aspects of my life. So I knew I didn't want to become a manager again, at least for this season of time. I want enough space and time to just get my feet back on the ground and see what I kind of ticks the box for me. The other thing is that with business compounds this for me is I take so much responsibility and ownership, and I put the world on my shoulders by myself. When in essence, it should be all of us taking it on together, especially in a team, especially in a family, especially in, any kind of scenario you can think of. In my life, like I don't need to take every single thing on all the time. But what happened was I was just being slowly crushed by it, because the reality is it's impossible. And realizing that entrepreneurship is the toughest gig I've ever had, apart from being a parent, by the way. That's number one, and there's no 1 through 10 spot. 11th is entrepreneurship to me. But it's a tough gig that we play professionally. And I realized I don't have some of my youth physically, energetically. I need to eat better. I need to take care of my body now, whereas previous I could just get by on that youthful health. But I ended up spending that for the last 15 years in many ways. I realized I get overwhelmed pretty easily some days, pretty easily a lot. And what I need is focus on this one thing. If I'm trying to focus on 15 things, I overwhelm myself, and naturally, obviously, but I just take one thing at a time and have had to go, I'm okay with that just not getting done today. This one thing, and finding some pride and accomplishment in this thing that I did today, is what I could do. A part of this is just learning my limits, understanding my limits. Like I think about your gauge when you rev up your car or truck and it gets into the red line. You don't want to stay in the red line. And what I did for 15 years was stayed in the red. I revved my engine as hard as it possibly could go, high as it possibly could go, and ended up causing so much problems with the engine, with the transmission and everything, because I was just trying to be a Formula One racer in a very long voyage. And going that fast all of the time just has limits. And I say this with honesty, but I'm thankful now that I can't do it anymore. Physically, I can't pound out something for 8 hours today. I can't do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to find my speed limit and stay a little bit under it. Sometimes maybe I might go higher, but realize, let's don't get into this red again. Let's get back down, because again, it's not going to be good for me. It's not going to be good for the people I love. And I shared the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It was our team mantra at iThemes. It's been my team mantra every place I've ever been. But what I was doing in reality was trying to go too fast alone. Too fast alone, being in the red all the time, not taking care of myself, dragging, ruminating on all of my problems. And now I've found better ways to cope that are more healthy, and learning those practices meditation. I did yoga a couple weeks ago, and knowing my movement in my body and recognizing how my body is feeling, and not just staying up here in my rational sometimes, but realizing, like, paying attention. What is this weird feeling in my gut? What am I feeling? Is it fear? Okay, speak to me, fear. What are you saying? But going too fast and by myself, putting the weight of the world on my shoulders or dragging it with me, it's just not good for me. And this actually applies to all areas of life, but I've had to just pace myself, slow down, go my own speed limit. This always on in post-edits in the WordPress community is a great example of this. It's always on. We bring Slack on our phones, text messages. We carry a computer in our pockets that's accessible virtually around the globe 24/7. Work comes in like waves. And it's not just post-edits, it's not just WordPress, it's all of work. But there's no boundaries on that always on culture. And I've tried to start to institute, like, maybe there doesn't need to be a Slack notification at 9 at night before I go to bed that sets me off and triggers me into worry and frustration. That actually it's better if I go to bed earlier, sleep, and then the world will be there. It has been for eons. It'll be there when I show up tomorrow too. Occasionally there's emergencies, but that can't be my norm anymore. And take breaks. You can read in every blog post and every book. It's like, go take breaks and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, I wasn't doing it. I knew it in my head, didn't do it. And I say, take actual breaks, realizing after this, I'll have some space between my next meeting. Then I need to go outside, get some fresh air, play with my kids, do something else, but take a break, get a drink of water or something like that. I had a banana for lunch, so maybe I should, try to get something else that's sustaining my health for me, but actually being forced to have to push away from this desk is a really good thing. And so I'm thankful again that I have to turn it off. I have to turn off the always on culture and take breaks and take actual breaks, things that recharge, things that I can get time and space, those mini sabbaticals called the weekend or vacations or actual sabbaticals, that I can do those. And I'm trying and working to find those more and more. I'll just say this. I have prided myself on a long time for being a good leader, but I was not a team player because I took all of this on myself and wouldn't share it with my team and be okay that it didn't have it happen the exact millisecond I wanted it to do in the exact way I wanted it to happen. And I'm learning to be a team player. Being our house spouse was part of that, like realizing Lindsay's doing the business professional paid work and supporting her in that, and knowing, like, one of the things that makes her happy, she comes home and there's dinner. She doesn't have to worry about that, the second shift kind of thing, and going, that's something I can do in a team player, in a support capacity, and being okay with that and deriving meaning and purpose and impact about being a team player again, and forced to not have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders or do all the things or show up in all the ways. It forces me to rely on other people in their own time and be okay with that. I just have to keep this index project for post-edits has overwhelmed me so many different times because I don't have the web skills I had maybe 15 years ago. And even then they were pretty mediocre. And just going, what's the one thing I can to do, and being okay with the weight. That's the only thing I can do. Doing one step at a time, not juggling all the things that I've done for 15 years, and just going, like, when I juggle 8 balls in the air, 7 of them at least are going to fall to the ground, and they're going to break, and they're going to be pretty messy. But if I can focus on 1 or 2, maybe just one step at a time at my own pace, that's way better for me. And that's the only way that I can continue to do my professional work, is if I just go one step at a time and not overwhelm myself. Okay, let's see what else we got here. All right, so that's some of the paid work. The deep inner work is just reminding myself, like, and not even reminding myself, it's just having to be forced, so to speak, to go, I have to take care of myself. I have to learn love, self-love, self-compassion. Those are ongoing things. I'm not going to get too deep into the inner work because I'm still working on those things. I wanted this to be more about burnout professionally, sabbaticals, but I can't help but sharing some of the deep work too. Leaning in, last night I was at a recovery meeting, and we read a passage in the book about that we were part of this group called Refuge Recovery, and it was about the meditation was about self-compassion. And I said, I was doing it for myself. I was still struggling. When I started to do it for the people in the room, the people in the world, my family, the people I love most, that comes really easy for me. I need to learn the work of compassion and love for myself. I'm still a work in progress there. Leaning on my support network, I've talked about that since 2015. The people that run in when everybody else rushes out, those are the people that stay. And my dad has been in my life for a long time, but really showed up in my life. We'd come up, we'd do little projects, we'd have, just to get to know him better. And my relationship with him has just multiplied because I had time and space to do that. But I leaned on him. I needed him, told him, I'm not working right now. I can't work right now. I feel like I'm on the injured list. Like I can't go back onto the field and start playing again. And when I do play, I'm going to play it totally different than I did before. My forum, like I said, and my counselor. And then practicing sitting with emotions. So I don't like tough emotions. It's part of the avoidance and the conflict. But those things are there to tell me something. And so the practice they say in therapy is sitting with those emotions. I'm like, cool, I get it. Fear's screaming at me going, go, do this, do that. What about this? What about that? And just going, I think it's going this loud because I'm probably not fully understanding what this biological thing in my body is telling me and informing me. And so sitting with that has been something I continue to live. And part of my deep work is just knowing there's tough emotions out there, but recognizing they're not enemies, they're allies. They're here to tell me something that I'm feeling in my body, and understanding them and reacting to them and learning from them and sitting with them and just listening to them. It's not easy, but it's a practice that I'm learning. And I say whole because wholeness, Brene Brown talks a lot about wholeness, but whole is this complete, this whole sphere. What I say here too is spirituality. I put spirituality on a shelf for about 13 years and said, I had a bad experience in the past and I wouldn't go back to it. But in this phase, I've realized how much, and I'm going to use that word very general, but is that I've lacked this really core part of who I am and need, spirituality. I'm doing it on a totally different way with a different perspective. And it's been so good because when I come to my end of myself, as I have so many different times, and I realized in my previous faith that I would pray, and I had prayer journals and all these things, and I was lacking some sense of the spiritual, of the universe, of all of the matter and beings in the world. And it's been nice to start to come back to a new, different spirituality that I've really lacked for a long time. And it's been a key to my health and my journey. And I just got to say this too, is being open, practicing openness, suspending judgment. It doesn't matter if you thought all these things 10, 15, 30, 40, when I was a kid. Wait, let me come back to this with a fresh perspective, with openness, sitting with it. It doesn't mean I have to embrace it, embrace that particular belief or whatever. It means I can just sit with it and sit with it and talk to it and understand it and say, how would I like it to be next? Because the old way didn't necessarily serve me as best. So there's a time when I was like, I want to rename, I would refer to my inner self as Mahalo, because gratitude is one of the biggest discoveries I've made over the last 6 months, is that it's the best drug. It helps me when I'm grateful for the things and the people in my life. It expands them. It brings new things into, and I assign value that I lowered value because I wasn't grateful for everything that I have and am and who are in my life and who may come into my life. But it's a great drug. It doesn't have very many side effects. And then I'll just say this again, time and space. I hope you can find time and space in your work, in your life, to just recharge, reflect, look back at the wires and how they're wired and why, and go, do you want something different in its place? This website, the Sabbatical Project, was really helpful to know that this should be, sabbaticals should be a thing in our work. I hope corporations, businesses, and organizations embrace the sabbatical. I know Automatic has a sabbatical, and I'll tell you, just apart from some of the really deep work I've done, being able to have some time and space from my work made me better for the work when I came back, but more importantly, myself. And so I hope companies and organizations will really start to learn more about this and test these things with their people and themselves, because it's been absolutely crucial for my journey. So I want to close with this. This is for you. I shared these because I want you to know you're not alone. And my admonition to you today is, don't go it alone. If you're hurting, if you need a break, find those people that run into your life when everybody rushes out. Those are the people that love you, that care about you. Find support in a professionally trained counselor. Get the support and help you need. It's the hardest thing for me to do sometimes, is to get that, oh, it's off my shoulder, I need help, people. And it's amazing though, when I have been open and accepting to the generosity I give to so many other people for myself. All right, that's what I had for today. I so much appreciate you all being here to let me share my journey and my experiences. And I hope it has been incredibly helpful for you and inspired you to do your own work, to take some time and space that you need to be better for yourself and for the people that you love.